You're listening to the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. Now here's your hosts, Kevin, Derek, and Alex.
All righty, welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another episode of the Good Old Boys Fantasy Football Podcast. I am Derek, and joined as always by your co-host, Alex. Alex, how we doing tonight?
I'm great, man. It's been it was cool. I actually got to see Kevin in person. The funny thing is, we've done this podcast now for 6 years, 5 years, 6 years, whatever it is, 5-6 years.
Five and change.
Yeah, we're coming up on 5 or 6 full years of doing it, and we don't ever see each other in person. Like, we started this and we were living in different parts of the country. Then a pandemic hit and it just, kind of locked down. And this was kind of our only escape to seeing other people. But I've seen my two co-hosts in person since we've started this podcast. I think I've seen my two co-hosts in person a total number of 2 times. And it's both been Kevin.
Yep.
And I just saw him last weekend. He's moved down to the Lone Star State, so he's a little bit closer to where I'm at now. And so I was able to catch up with him. So that was fun. It was a good weekend for us to catch up. It was just one night that we got to catch up with each other. On a personal note, I got a new bed. And I'm very excited about that new mattress. We actually got it yesterday, but they gave us the wrong one. So when they delivered it, we kind of looked at it. My wife kind of looked at it. She's like, I don't think this is what we picked. Like, this doesn't look right. And then she sat on it and she's like, this definitely isn't what we picked. Like, so we slept on that bed last night, and I called the company today. They were great. And I was like, hey, I think you guys might have given us the wrong bed. And he's like, oh, is it like firmer than you thought? And I was like, no, it's way softer. And I think it was the more expensive bed that we looked at first. Like, that's the one they gave us, but they gave us the wrong firmness. So the bank error did not work out in our favor. And we were like, yeah, like, this is great, but it isn't what we wanted. So
Appreciate it. Would you please change it?
So I've not had a new bed for 7 years now, and it'll be 3 mattresses in 3 nights here at the casa. We'll see if this works. But yeah, so I'm looking forward to tonight's sleep. Not that I'm not looking forward to what we're talking about, but man, am I excited to get some quality shut-eye tonight.
Fair enough. Yeah, that's always fun and dealing with that. Although sounds like you had a pretty good experience even with.
It was wild. I called the guy and I'm like, hey, I think you gave us the wrong one. And he's like, can you take a picture of it? And I was like, sure, here you go. Here's a picture. And he's like, yeah, that's definitely the wrong one. Let me make some calls. I'll give you a call right back. And within not even 10 minutes, he calls me back and he's like, yeah, that's the wrong one. We've got the right one. When can we bring it to you? And I was like, well, I'm not going to get home until after 6:30. You guys don't have to work late just because I work late. I work a little bit later than normal people do. Right. And he was like, "Nah, 6:30. That's great." And I rolled up at 6:15 to my house, and they were sitting out front, ready to take these mattresses. I was like, "All right, cool." And they were so apologetic, and I was just like, "No, it's fine. It's not like you guys didn't leave me a mattress to sleep on. It's great." So
right. Yeah, that's nice, because typically a lot of times when you have that, it's like, oh yeah, we can make it back there a week from next never.
Right. Yeah. See, okay. This is my little soapbox I'll get on. It's a local company that we shopped with, and it's my plea to you. I understand. Look, it's easy to order from the internet and these big box stores, or that one giant conglomerate that exists out there. Trust me, We order from that place all the time. But if you're going to do something that you want to have a warranty or some sort of accountability for a big purchase like that, like look, we did. It wasn't a cheap mattress, though. It was a king size mattress we bought.
Right.
Shop local, man. Just shop local. It might cost you a little bit more, but that's the kind of accountability that you're going to have, because you can go down to their storefront or call them up on the phone and be like, "Hey, this is wrong. Can you fix it?" And they did. And this company is great. And I will have nothing but nice things to say about them. So yeah, it was just funny to have 3 mattresses in 3 nights.
Right.
Like in the same room.
Right. No, that's funny.
Really experience that too often. So
that is the funny. So
I did also want to bring up another thing unrelated to my sleeping arrangements. The Colorado Rockies. Have you heard of them?
I think they play baseball.
Yeah, well, they allegedly they play baseball, because they're on pace for a historically bad season, perhaps the worst season of all time. But tonight they won. I'm not sure if you're aware of that. They beat Miami, which, according to this article on ESPN, has snapped a streak of losing series. Don't look if you haven't looked. How many series in a row do you think the Rockies have lost up to tonight?
Well, they're 52 games into the season, 53 games, something like that.
Oh no, I think they are 60 games into the season now.
Okay, so 60 games into the season, and call it 3 games a series in that.
Sure.
So we're going to say that there's probably about 10 series in there. And if they just snap that losing streak, I'm going to go with 9.
You say they've lost 9 straight series?
They'd lost 9 straight series up to that point is what I'm guessing.
I'm going to say that you're low.
Okay.
By a factor. By a factor. Not a large factor.
Actually, okay. Let's go with 19 then. Let's just go wild. Go up to 19.
You're low.
Okay.
Not by a factor this time. You're off by 3.
Okay.
They've lost 22 straight series before their win tonight snapped that streak. That
fair enough
is historically bad.
Yeah, that's pretty not good.
This team went to the World Series in my lifetime, and they are this bad. They've been so bad.
Yeah, that's facts. They are the no good. So
yeah.
Although they're as bad as they are, they still managed to only be the 3rd fastest team in Major League history to get to 50 losses.
Yeah, the White Sox last year or year before. The White Sox are one of those, and then I don't remember who the other team was.
Yeah, the Rockies are certainly trying to blow my theory out of the water to only have the Major League Baseball season be 54 games, because you're going to win 54, you're going to lose 54, and the only thing that really matters is the 54 in between. So they're doing their best to try and blow that theory out of the water. Yeah,
they do not want a well, maybe they do want a 54 game season, because they would be done already and into the off season.
Right. There's a point to that when you're losing as badly and as much as they are, you do start looking forward to just being in the off season to say, hey, there's always next year.
All right, one more thing I got to tell you. Well, I went to my wife's nephew's graduation from high school on Friday. That's why I got to see Kevin. I was in his hometown for that, or where he lives now. And there was a guy, we were in the football stadium. It was hot. It's 8:00, even though it's hot. And this guy next to me is on his phone. We're packed in like sardines. And he is on Sleeper. And he's also on some other website that is like trying to match up trade proposals. And I caught myself more than once looking over at his phone and being like, wow, if he gets that trade to go through, like he fleeces that guy. and he was trying to be, in fairness, it looked like he was trying to be fair. But there was a couple I was just like, no way. No way do you take that deal. No way do you take that deal.
Right. So,
but that was pretty funny. So there are people out there alive and well that are just like you and Kevin, Derek, that are on Sleeper or whatever their fantasy platform of choice is, and they are working to improve their roster here as we sit in the month of June.
all right. Well, and I'm not gonna lie, best ball season has started for me.
That's great, because I think if you want to segue into our topic for the night, unless I should ask you how you're doing.
I'm just living the best day ever. So getting to chat with you and on a wonderful Tuesday here and getting to do our thing. So it's always a good time there. Let me get your thoughts though on this on the Superflex. It's a Superflex best ball, which I don't participate in many Superflex best balls. Usually the best balls are a single QB, but
Interesting.
tell me what you think on this one. And yeah, again, an interesting segue because we're talking about quarterbacks tonight, and we're going to be talking about kind of where we think these guys are sitting and playing and all of that here for the upcoming season as we start getting into our player profiles and player breakdowns here. But in this Superflex best ball, the team so far consists of Jaden Daniels, Puka Nacua, Dak Prescott, Kyron Williams, Bryce Young, Mike Evans, and James Conner. And in this, it is a 1 QB, 1 Superflex, 2 running backs, 2 wide receivers, 1 tight end, and a flex on this for the starting lineup.
So you went Jaden, Puka, Dak, Kyron.
Mm-hmm.
And then who was the last?
Bryce Young, Mike Evans, and James Conner.
Interesting. Bryce Young in a best ball is very intriguing.
Mm-hmm.
Especially on,
as
what is that,
QB3.
6th round capital. Yeah.
Yeah, I had to. Well, no, I had to take him with a 5th to get it.
5th round pick, yeah.
I mean, here in the 6th round, the best quarterback that would have been available to me in the 6th round would have been Jackson Dart, Tyler Shook, Aaron Rodgers, Daniel Jones type of thing. Like we're starting to scrape bottom of that range, and no way in a super flex do I want to only have 2 starting QBs.
Yeah. That's interesting. Bryce Young in a best ball is intriguing. Right. I like the strategy of going quarterback heavy. Obviously, I think that's the way you do it.
Right, and that was one of those really just kind of letting the board, like playing the board a little bit there, right, and seeing what was there, and then seeing what would come back around because I was drafting out of the 103. So you're tilted towards one side of the draft, and you've got to play that game every time. Like, okay, what do I think might be available to me next time around?
So this isn't what we're talking about tonight. We'll talk about it later, I guess. But I don't know. I'm torn on Puka this year. I really am. Mm-hmm. I'm very torn on Puka this year because I see why targets vacated, right? Like that's a huge thing that targets have been vacated with Cooper Kupp moving on, heading to Seattle. So I can understand why people are excited about that, but like Cooper Kupp's gone. However, Devontae Adams is still is in town now. We know that Matt Stafford can support that, but are we sure that Matt Stafford is still, the Matt Stafford that we think of from 4 or 5 years ago? That was, able to throw for 4,000 yards consistently, or even more than that, really. Pull up his stats here real quick because I don't want to short him anything, but I mean, he in 2020 he threw for 4,000 yards. That was his last year in Detroit. First year in LA, he throws for 48.86. He's hurt in 22. He only plays in 9 games, right? Still manages to throw for 2,000 yards. So he's on pace for another 4,000 yard season.
Mm-hmm.
Last year, he gets to 4,000 yards, or basically 4,000. He's 3,900 in 15 games, and then in 16 games. We haven't seen a full season out of Matt Stafford since that 21 year, which was a magical one for them, right?
Right.
So we haven't seen him play all of the games. Now, I think last year he was held out because they were eliminated, right? Is that what that was? Like they weren't in contention, and he didn't play. I can't remember why he missed a game last year.
He missed week 18, which we wouldn't have counted that for fantasy purposes anyway. So
correct. But I don't know, man. It feels like his completion percentage is as high as ever. They're certainly throwing the football as much as not as much as that 21 year. My God, they threw the football a lot.
Right.
I don't know, man. It feels like we are now in year 15.
And we're certainly coming up to the end of
16?
the end of the career there. But here's the beautiful thing about Puka, right? Like the Breakfast Club is real, right? Like we saw that very much play out there with Cooper Kupp, and Puka Nacua has been part of that Breakfast Club in there. But there are a few wide receivers out there that are gonna get that double-digit targets a game, right? Puka is one of those guys that will likely get double-digit targets a game. Like even last year, even coming off of injury, all of that, like there's a lot of that he's still seeing, 10, 13 targets and over 100 yards, right? Like one of the big knocks on Puka last year was the touchdowns to it, right? Like even without the touchdowns there, even without putting up touchdowns on a game, like Puka's still in a low end or a high end wide receiver 2 range, right? He gets a touchdown, he's kind of easily inside wide receiver 1 territory on the week, right? So like that's one of those that your floor on that is on a weekly finishes in that wide receiver 13, 14 to 16 type of range. And if he catches a touchdown, you're now wide receiver 5 on the week, right? And like with that kind of consistency as well, like that just speaks that's going to translate very well to season long finish on that. So I think at worst case scenario, you're still drafting a top 10 wide receiver.
Fair point.
And so I may have drafted him at his ceiling there, right? If the touchdowns don't come, but the floor play, I still feel pretty confident about that one. Anyway, we kind of digress there.
Yeah, we'll talk about receivers here in a couple weeks.
Right. Yeah, we'll get there. Well, yeah. But you're right. Tonight it's all about the quarterbacks, right? And we're going to start diving into the player profiles and really getting into what that looks like here for the we're going to kind of start from the back end and start working our way up here. And so we originally were going to talk about kind of that ADP 17 through 32, but we decided we'd go with 2 bonus picks on this one, two bonus guys to talk about. So we're going to go all the way to 34 as far as ADP goes. So that's kind of where the ground we're covering tonight is QBs 17 through 34 on that one, and where that's kind of look and work and where that's coming to play on this one. So it'll be a good night and we'll have some fun with this thing. Not real sure what happened there. Hang on, we're working on it. Okay, there we go. Sometimes that happens. All right.
And it should be noted before we go on here, we are talking about quarterbacks 34, but there's also one team that has been omitted from these rankings. Pittsburgh doesn't know what their quarterback situation is right now, and that's why there isn't a Pittsburgh quarterback that we're going to talk about tonight. Like, we're not going to talk about a Pittsburgh quarterback tonight because they're not in the ADP range, and I think there's still hope that somebody out there, a free agent that has yet to find a home, may find a home in Pittsburgh. So Let's start with number 34.
Okay. And that is right where we're heading. Right here, old number 34, Daniel Jones is currently the ADP 34 quarterback off the board. And that's when you're talking about best ball type of thing. And we're going with best ball at this point, more so than a standard redraft type of format, just because of kind of the timing where we're at. So that's where we're looking for that as well. But the Daniel Jones certainly had a very interesting ride this last season, right? Was set ready to go as Giants QB1. Really didn't have the season that he and Brian Dable were looking for, and the Giants and him decided to part ways partway through the season. So on a shortened season, he had 216 completions on 341 attempts for 2,070 yards, 8 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, was sacked 29 times, and really kind of had a less than desirable season. But thoughts on Daniel Jones?
Yeah, so looking at some of his projections, and again, you mentioned like he leaves New York, right? Goes to Minnesota. Doesn't play at all, but kind of gets a taste of, again, what winning football is, because they were doing so well in Minnesota, and gets to be around winning football again. And I think that's important, right? That he gets around. Now he signs with Indianapolis in the offseason. He's going to have to compete with Anthony Richardson. And I don't know how much competition it's going to be, how long of a leash Anthony Richardson is. And we'll talk about Anthony Richardson here in just a moment. But this is a gamble play because you're banking on the fact that he eventually takes over, right? At 34 here, I think this is probably an adequate ranking for him because he's not a out and out named starter. He is in a QB competition. He's on a 1-year prove it deal there in Indy. So I think it's in a best ball situation. This is probably not a pick that I'm looking to make unless I'm like desperate and stashing away and hoping for something to happen in the middle part to the back half of the season. I do think Anthony Richardson gets probably a little bit. I think he's got a longer leash than maybe first thought, but their bye week is week 11 in Indianapolis, and they got pretty tough games to start the year. So if there's a chance to make a change, it's maybe week 5 home against Las Vegas. Week 6 you're home against Arizona, so there's a nice back-to-back home games in there. If you're going to make a change, it's not like you need to wait for a rookie to get up to speed. Like Daniel Jones knows what's going on. So that maybe that you throw that thinking out the window of like, oh, when's a good time to get him in? Because he should be in theory ready to go week 1.
Yeah, I mean, and that's one of those that you didn't necessarily sign a backup quarterback to a 1-year, $14 million type of deal to just be the backup, right? Like this is one of those that the move kind of puts some pressure on Anthony Richardson here to see like, hey, what do we really have with this guy? Is he going to take that leap? Is he going to start developing? Is he going to be our guy going forward? Or is this one of those that we're bringing in somebody else that has starting experience in the league, has been a starter, was drafted to be a franchise quarterback for a different franchise, and we've seen guys that were drafted to be the quarterback of a franchise make the move and change teams, and all of a sudden they're back to being they're back to being the guy that people thought who they were drafting type of deal. So we'll see how this one comes to play. But as far as this season goes, I'm not looking to put Daniel Jones on any roster of mine at this point, right? Like I want to wait and see what this thing looks like. And this is one of those that you'll have that ability to, right? This is a guy that will likely be still on the waiver wire come week 1, and you can really kind of see how the QB battle shapes up in camp. And as the season progresses, if there's changes made, you can certainly pivot and roll with that as well if need be. Any other thoughts on Daniel Jones?
Nah.
All right. let's go ahead and hit up Tyler Shook. And Tyler, the new QB that was okay. That's gonna drive me nuts there. Lots of fun. Anyway, gotta love the old technical difficulties going on there. But anyway, my apologies. I digress. Tyler Show is the presumed quarterback for New Orleans this season after the second round draft capital spent on him. He's a rookie coming in. Thoughts on Tyler?
He's a rookie, but he's 25. I think he might be older than both of the other quarterbacks they have on their roster right now. Jake Haener and Spencer Rattler both on roster there in New Orleans. Look, I think he might be the starter come week one, but I think Spencer Rattler's got a good shot at that too. Jake Haener does have a good shot at that too. I'm nervous about this one, so I'm going to stay probably as far away as possible. Superflex, best ball redraft, not this year for me.
Fair enough. And I could certainly see that, right? Like this is not this is one of those that you're almost taking a little bit of a hero call if you're drafting Tyler. But this is one of those that, again, right? Like this is a guy that we can wait and see what the Saints situation really looks like week one. When a QB is coming off the board, QB 33, which is where he's currently coming off for best ball type of purposes. Now, you're not in any rush to have to make a move or really do this one. So you can kind of sit back, take a look, got to see how this thing comes to play. But again, with that situation that they've got in New Orleans, right? This isn't a shining spot to necessarily step into and see how that one kind of looks and work. There'll be some growing pains for sure on this one. And I don't know that I necessarily want to spend draft capital for a growing pains experience. So I'll go ahead and wait a little bit on this one, but he is intriguing enough to keep an eye on and add to a watch list and see how this thing continues to play out there. All righty. Let's go ahead and look at the next guy here. We've got Shedeur Sanders. And Shedeur Sanders, as we all saw, had the kind of the epic slide when it came to the draft, right? This was a guy that a lot of people had pegged as a top 5 pick and ended up sliding all the way down to pick 144, where the Browns took him after taking a quarterback in the 3rd round ahead of him, being Dillon Gabriel. But this is a crowded room with Joe Flacco, Kenny Pickett, and Dillon Gabriel. Thoughts on Shedeur Sanders?
And technically, Deshaun Watson's still on roster too.
And Deshaun Watson, yes. Deshaun Watson not anticipated to make any sort of deal with that Achilles injury,
but technically still on the roster.
That is true.
It is a crowded room. I'm not in on Shedeur Sanders. Again, it's a crowded room. I would be I would be more shocked if Shedeur Sanders played a snap by week 10 than if he were cut before week 1. Like I genuinely think he's more likely to be cut week 1 than he is to play a snap by week 10 for the Browns. So I'm out on Shedeur Sanders.
Okay. I don't know that I'm as bold of a take as that, where I think he'll more likely be cut than play. I think that this is a guy that will make the roster on this. And I do think that we're going to probably see him get a opportunity at some point in the season, right? Like this is one of those that they really don't have a guy moving forward on this one, right? Like in this room, you bring in Joe Flacco because, right, he had some success with the organization a few years ago and did some pretty good things there, and he's that seasoned vet in the locker room, and knows kind of the ins and outs of how to be a pro on that one, right? You bring in Kenny Pickett, who certainly didn't work out in Pittsburgh, has bounced around a little bit. And we'll see how that comes to play there. Right. But I don't think that he's necessarily your guy either, to the point where you spent you spent a top 100 pick on a quarterback to bring in Dylan Gabriel. I certainly think that he's got some good things when it comes to the I do think that he's got some really good things when it comes to how he processes and sees this game. I just don't know that we're going to see him necessarily shake out there, as well as when it comes down to Shadur. I think they're going to see what they've got there and see if they can move forward, because the guy that they spent all that money on and brought into is turning out not to be the guy with it when it comes to Deshaun Watson. So, but again, from a fantasy perspective, I do want to give this one a little bit of time to cook and see how this thing comes through. And if I'm on the clock and making a draft pick, I am not taking Shadur Sanders, outside of some dynasty and some late round rookie type of picks there. I'm not taking Shadur Sanders when it comes to a best ball or a redraft league that I'm looking at until we get through camp and we really kind of have an idea on how that QB room is going to shake up and see. So again, another guy that's worth kind of adding to the list as a guy to keep an eye on, but not necessarily a guy worth spending a draft pick on at this point. Any other thoughts on Shadur?
Yeah, look, if you don't think that Kevin Stefanski's seat is hot, it's certainly warming, right? Mm-hmm. He's going to go with the best chance to win football games. And I think that, just from the outside looking in, he probably assumes his best chance to win football games is with the guy who won football games with him before, and that's Joe Flacco. So, I would be willing to bet that Joe Flacco is the quarterback that takes the most snaps, barring injury, for this Browns team this year. I think there was a reason that Joe Flacco is back in Cleveland.
No, I can certainly see that and agree with that train of thought.
So all that to say, it does not look good for Shadur Sanders this year.
Right. Now it'll be interesting, right? They have their bye week in week 9, so kind of halfway in the season, and I think that's going to be the telling point there as well, right? Even if Joe Flacco is the starter going forward, I think it really depends on how those first 8 games of the season go and where they're looking at, to the point where it could be turning that over and bringing in the young guys to see what they've got going forward.
Yeah, and I think in the pecking order, Dylan Gabriel probably gets the first crack at it. I just don't see Shadur Sanders getting any snaps this year.
Okay. Fair enough. All righty. Let's go ahead and take a look at the next guy on the ADP right now, which is Jackson Dart. You're coming off the board, QB 31, kind of in that 197 overall. Jackson Dart was a guy that the Giants went and traded up for and traded back into the first round to make a pick here. And thoughts on Jackson Dart?
Again, another guy that I think is not going to be the starter this year. And I don't know that he is. I think that Russell Wilson is going to take a majority of the snaps. The Giants have a very difficult opening to their schedule, where they've got playoff teams basically until week 5. Their bye week is super late, and they've got the NFC North this year, so it's going to be difficult for Jackson Dart to find the field, barring an injury, I think, to Russell Wilson. I mean, their early season is division game with Washington, at Dallas. They host Kansas City. They host the Chargers. They're at New Orleans week 5, so that's a bit of a reprieve, but you never know. They get Super Bowl champion Philadelphia. They're at Denver. They get Super Bowl champion Philadelphia again, right? So they knock out Philadelphia 3 games in basically 3 weeks or 2 games in 3 weeks there. You've got San Fran, Chicago, Green Bay. Like it is not an easy schedule for the Giants this year. And I don't think you want to hurt the kid by putting him in. I think there's a reason that you get him in the first round because you get the extra year, right? And I just think this is a long game with Jackson Dart. So for this year, I just don't see him being a major contributor, really contributing anything.
Yeah, this is a guy that I'm almost on for a redraft and best ball. I'm just kind of adding to a do not draft list. Like I'm not looking to put Jackson Dart on any of my rosters. A lot of that has to do with the fact that one, you don't necessarily bring a guy in to with Russ to bring him in to not necessarily be the starter, right? Like we've kind of seen that one play out in a couple of different stops now. So I do think that Russ is going to be your starter on this one. And I do think that he'll probably hang on to the job season long. Yeah. Until, unless they get down into that kind of end of the season and they're very well eliminated and, now you're starting to see what you got type of thing, right? Like, and at which point, maybe we can see, but I'm not looking to spend draft capital on let's see what we have midway to end of the season type of thing and trying to stash something there for multiple weeks for a non-starting quarterback. Which I don't see Jackson Dart being. I don't think he's gonna win over the job there. I think that he's gonna have some pretty good stepping stones, and it's going to take a bit of a transition for him to move from that Ole Miss offense and what Lane Kiffin does to a more NFL pro style offense and what that's going to look like. So I think there's going to be some growing pains and things like that. And I think this is more of a grow year type of thing here, more so than we're going to see some fantasy relevance on this one. Any other thoughts on Jackson Dart?
I don't, but I am going to pose this question to you because we've talked about 4 quarterbacks now that aren't projected to be the starting quarterback when the season starts. So of those 4 quarterbacks that we've talked about, Daniel Jones, Tyler Shuck, Shedeur Sanders, and Jackson Dart, who do you think takes the most snaps? And then who do you think finishes as the highest fantasy quarterback among those 4?
Realistically, I think it's going to be Tyler Shuck, just from the standpoint that I think he will probably be QB1 starting week 1, right? Like Saints have got to figure out what they've got in that quarterback room, right? Like they thought they had the guy, thought that Derek Carr was going to be the deal, retired. That's obviously not going to be the case anymore, right? So, you've got a roster that's starting to age out a little bit throughout various positions on the Saints, and you've got some cap trouble. So I do think that they're going to trial by fire a little bit at the quarterback position in New Orleans and really see what they've got. And because if one of these guys is not the guy on the roster that they can build with and move forward with, they're going to be looking for a quarterback again next draft on that one. And so I very much think this is one of those that they're going to see what they've got and they're going to very much kind of press that one into play.
Is he your answer for both of those questions?
He is.
Okay.
Any differing opinions?
Yeah, I think it's going to be Daniel Jones. Like I really do. I think that I think the leash is probably not as long for Anthony Richardson. Like I do think that Daniel Jones probably is the highest fantasy quarterback among those 4 this year.
Maybe.
Now I could see getting the most opportunity. But
I don't know. Daniel Jones, if he's not running the ball from a fantasy perspective, doesn't provide much there, right? And
that's fair. That's fair.
And quite frankly, if you're going to have him running the ball, why have him run the ball when you've got a guy like Jonathan Taylor there? Or if you're going to have quarterback runs, why are you going to have him run the ball versus Anthony Richardson?
that argument doesn't hold up though, Derek, because he had Saquon Barkley in New York, right? And he ran the football there. So like, I get it, I do, but like,
yeah, he also ran the ball with several injuries less on those legs
and
that body. So, anyway, let's. Any other thoughts on this one or
no?
Okay. All righty, let's go ahead and move on to a guy that's in the starting QB range, but not actually on a roster at this point, and that is Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is coming off of a rather unremarkable season this past year, right? Coming off of 368 completions, 584 attempts, 3,897 yards, 28 touchdowns, 11 interceptions, and 40 sacks. Did manage to put up about 107 yards rushing into that mix there as well. Thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
I mean, it's very simple. As we sit here and talk on June 3rd, he's not on a roster, which means he does me no good. So I'm not drafting him. I'm not spending draft capital. Now, if he and Pittsburgh can figure something out, my opinion changes because I do think that there's enough talent there in Pittsburgh that he would be able to overcome some things. But again, last year was bad. And he was on not a great team there in New York, but it wasn't good. And I think Pittsburgh's a better team. I think Pittsburgh's a better run organization. So I think my opinion would change, but as we sit right now, he's not on a roster, so I'm not drafting him.
Yeah, and I certainly understand that one, and I do want to see where he actually kind of finishes out there, right? But if Aaron Rodgers is on a roster, and he's coming off the board as QB 30 at this point, I think there is some value. I'm sorry, he's coming off the board. Yes, as QB 30, right around pick 196 in a lot of cases, right? There is some value in that because if Aaron Rodgers is playing and manages to get through the entire season, you're talking about a guy that's going to have a QB finish inside QB 16, 17. So there's a ton of built-in value here on this one. And part of the reason that you're seeing a depressed ADP on this one is the fact that he's not on a roster. So this is a little bit of a value pick for me, and especially if I'm playing a Superflex and playing a best ball, I am willing to kind of wait and take him where he's going to come off the board at there. So, any other thoughts on Aaron Rodgers?
Nah.
All righty. Let's go ahead and scooch on over to Russell Wilson. And so at this point, is it still dangerous? I don't know.
It is if you take him.
There you go. All right. The other question that I have is, is he still Mr. Unlimited, or is this now limited Russell Wilson? Anyway,
I don't know, but
I'm poking and having fun.
You are.
I'll introduce it the way we should. Oh, apologies. Alrighty. So Russell Wilson last year with Pittsburgh, 214 completions, 336 attempts, 2,482 yards, and 16 touchdowns, 5 interceptions. Managed to put together 155 rushing yards as well.
He played so good that the team that wasn't even paying him to play for them said, "No, thanks, we're good." That's how well Russell Wilson played last year. He wasn't even being paid by that team that he was playing for, and they were still like, "Nah, we're good." I don't know. If you want a piece of the Giants offense, I guess this is the piece you take. More likely Russell Wilson than Jameis Winston or Jackson Dart, but like I feel bad for Malik Neighbors people. I do think, look, Russ can supply a good receiver provided he understands what the play clock is, and can get the ball snapped before that expires. I guess I don't have an issue, kind of your same logic with Aaron Rodgers. I don't have an issue with where he's going here, but I'm not going to expect much. Like this feels right. This feels where value is. Like he is here. He might bump up 2 or 3 spots, but like I'm not anticipating Russell Wilson to finish much higher than QB 22. So he's in the QB 3 range no matter what for me. And so like I would rather have somebody who's got a higher upside. Some of the guys we're about to talk about that may have a better upside than what Russ has.
Fair enough. And I think you hit the nail right on the head, right? Like Russ can have some value when it comes to some spot starts, things like that. And the good thing about Russ is this is a guy that you could use as a potential streamer down the road, a spot start type of guy. This is not a guy that you're going to have to go out and spend high draft capital on. And the one of the nice things is with Russ is it's not like some of these quarterbacks or some of these other players where you really have to, they leave you scratching your head wondering what in the world happened and how did he have that kind of week. Yeah, this is one of those that one thing we've seen out of Russ over the last couple of seasons is when they're playing a team that they should have a good fantasy week against, he tends to deliver an okay fantasy week against. So it's not one of those that you're really having to kind of scratch and claw and try to figure that one out as far as how that's going to play out. So I think you're right. I think there is some value here. Is this one of those that I'm looking to have to hang my season on Russ? No, I wouldn't like to do that, but there could be some value from a spot start, from a streaming type of option on this one. So that's kind of where I see him as well. Any other thoughts on Russell Wilson? Okay, let's go ahead and head on over to Anthony Richardson. And Anthony Richardson last season had a 126 completions on 264 attempts, 1,814 yards on the through the air, 8 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, 14 sacks, managed to rush about for almost 500 yards and 6 touchdowns. Thoughts on Anthony Richardson?
It is the Anthony Richardson experience, right? That's what you're gonna have to go through if you're gonna spend a draft pick on him. I think rightfully so. Too many people were scorned by him. He was, best ball his rookie year. He had to have been one of the first 4 or 5 quarterbacks off the board, and then obviously he got hurt. I think people were like, that's okay. He's coming back. And then what an up and down year last year to getting benched, to getting unbenched, to getting hurt again. So inconsistency is probably, the best way to describe his NFL career right now. It's been inconsistent. I think it's been disappointing. Look, he doesn't throw the ball a ton. He doesn't complete a lot of those throws that he doesn't have. He does run the ball quite a bit, but you're at a deficit when it comes touchdown to interception throwing. It's hard to make that up with the rushing upside. But to me, in a best ball, sure. At 29, QB 29, fine. I have no problem taking Anthony Richardson, but I'm not thinking about him until I'm in the very late stages of a draft.
Fair enough. I think that this one may be a season where we finally start seeing things come to play a little bit more so, right? Like certainly not looking for him to kind of live up to previous draft capital that we've seen him go, but I do think that there is some value here. Right, this is one of those that I'm not necessarily looking for a whole lot when thinking of this one. Right, like this is a guy that I think you're probably drafting him pretty close to where he'll finish, but he will have some pop weeks and some good weeks in there. Right, this is a guy that I think we do see him manage to put together a season where we actually see him kind of figure it out a little bit as a passer. Wouldn't surprise me if we see him, you ultimately get his completion percentage up closer to about 60%, whereas last season didn't even make it to 50. So I do think that we see some growth in that front, and I do think we see him develop as a passer here a little bit. I do think though that we're probably going to see him struggle to get to 2,600 yards through the air. I do think that we're going to get closer to a 1-to-1 ratio when it comes to passing touchdowns, interceptions. Yeah, if I had to pick, I'd probably say somewhere in the neighborhood of like 15 touchdowns, probably 11, 12 interceptions. And I think we're going to see somewhere in the neighborhood of about 500 yards again, and maybe about 5-6 touchdowns on the ground. So there's going to be some value here, and the rushing upside will put some things into play and put some things into favor there, and he'll have some pop weeks. But again, this is one of those that I'm not going to necessarily want to trust my my season long on that one. But as a streamer, as a spot start type of candidate, there may be some value in that one. Any other thoughts on this one?
No.
All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and head on over to Sam Darnold. And Sam Darnold, now the journeyman, Sam Darnold, just certainly kind of resurrected the old career by going to Minnesota this last year, where he had a fantastic season, 361 completions, 545 attempts, 4,319 yards, 35 touchdowns, 12 interceptions, put up about 212 yards on the ground and 1 rushing touchdown. Thoughts on Sam Darnold?
So this is the first player that I feel is totally undervalued. And if you look at the weapons that they have there in Seattle, right? You've got a solid running game, right? Which takes pressure off of a quarterback. And I know that it's counter to think like, oh, the running backs, that just takes away opportunity for the quarterback. Well, it doesn't. It actually opens up opportunity, right? So he's got a good running game with Kenneth Walker, Zach Charbonnet, right? That's a solid running game that they have there. He's got good receivers. JSN, Cooper Kupp, Marquez Valdez-Scantling is on that team now. Noah Fant, good pass-catching tight end, right? So he's got options of who to throw to. We saw that he could make it work there in Minnesota as kind of on a prove-it year himself, thrown into where he wasn't expected to be the starter, right? JJ McCarthy was supposed to be the starter last year, gets hurt in training camp, and now, Sam Darnold converts it into a playoff appearance and a contract now in Seattle. So I think that I'm great if Sam Darnold falls to me in as QB 27. I think he finishes in the top 15 of quarterbacks. So that is great value for me. I like Sam Darnold. I especially like him where he's going.
Okay. Yeah, I mean, I can certainly see that, right? Like he came off of a really good season, and so I can certainly understand that point of view, where this is one of those that I'm not necessarily thinking that we're going to see the same kind of lightning strike on this one, right? I'm beginning to think Kevin O'Connell might be a little bit of that quarterback whisperer when it comes to the NFL and how that comes to play, right? Like we've seen a lot of guys come in there and have immediate success with his system and how he runs. Not necessarily the case with Clint Kubiak's system, right? Like that's who the offensive coordinator is in Seattle. With Kubiak, right, you're going to get a lot more run. You're going to get a lot of that zone read out, that zone read and zone outside run there, and a very balanced offense there as well, right? So I do think that that's one of those that we will see Sam Darnold kind of fall back to earth a little bit and return to the median a bit. So one of those that, again, I think we see him probably in that like 3,500 yards passing. Probably see him in that 20 to 25 touchdown range, and we probably see the interceptions tick up just a bit, right? Probably up to that 14, 15 type of range. I think we probably get about similar rushing output to it. So this is one of those that I think that where he's coming off the board, he's coming off the board at QB 27. I'm not as bullish as you are about him being up there closer to like QB 15, but I do think that this is a guy that when we look up, we're going to see him probably closer to about QB 20 when it's all said and done. So I do think that there is some value here on this one. And this is probably a guy that I'm looking more as a streamer, as a spot start. I wouldn't mind having him as my third QB in a pinch on a super flex type of deal. So that's kind of where I'm seeing Sam Darnold. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, sir.
All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and hit up the next guy on the list, and that is Cam Ward. And Cam Ward is the number 1 overall pick coming into Tennessee this year. Thoughts on Cam Ward?
We assume he's going to be the starter here week 1 for Tennessee. And he's got somewhat, not an incredibly favorable schedule, but somewhat of a favorable schedule. The first game at Denver, that's going to be tough. But then he's got the Rams at home, the Colts at home, at Houston, at Arizona to start the year. So I kind of like the start for him. I like how they've the projections out for him here is 21 touchdowns to 14 picks. And I feel like that's probably a bit high, 21 passing touchdowns. I feel like the 14 picks is good, but the 21 passing touchdowns feels a bit high. Yes, Miami played a tough schedule, but it's still difficult. So where he's going, I'm okay with. Like, I feel like, again, this is a adequate ranking for him to finish QB 27 feels a little bit low. So maybe there's a little bit of built-in value there. I think that's probably going to finish a bit higher than QB 27 just based on if he plays a full season. I feel like the rushing numbers will push him up there. So don't mind him in a best ball. Don't mind him when I don't have to worry about is he going to go off this week or not. Like I really am a fan of that.
Yeah, this is one of those that right, like not stepping into a great situation, right? Which is pretty obvious when you're talking about a guy that was drafted with the number 1 overall pick, means that he's going to a team that finished with that worst record the previous year, typically, right? And that is the case. This is one of those that not necessarily a fan of a lot of the situation that we see here and all of that. So do I think Cam Ward will have an okay rookie season? Yes, I do. Do I think that this is one of those that I'm going to see tremendous value on this one? No, I'm not looking at that. I do think that there will be some pretty good learning curves when it comes to the NFL game and the speed of the game there. And so this is one that if I'm kind of falling down into that range and I'm having to try and pick between like Cam Ward and Jackson Dart as my third quarterback in a super flex, okay, like that's kind of the range that I would pull the trigger on, but outside of that, I'm willing to just kind of let him sit there and be somebody else's depth piece and or problem at that point, because I do think that we're not necessarily going to see much out of him this rookie campaign.
Yeah, that feels right.
Any other thoughts on Cam Ward?
No.
All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and hit up the old Geno Smith, and Geno Smith is Geno Smith's the new play caller for the Raiders this year, coming over from Seattle, where he certainly had a little bit of a resurrection in Seattle. But last season, Geno had 407 completions on 578 attempts, 4,320 yards through the air, 21 touchdowns, 15 interceptions. Did manage to put together 272 yards on the ground and 2 rushing touchdowns. Thoughts on Geno Smith?
It's just going to be interesting this year because it's a Pete Carroll head coach team with a Chip Kelly offensive coordinator. And it feels like that is immovable object, and what's the other thing that goes opposite of that?
Unstoppable force and immovable object.
Yeah, there you go. Brain just shut off there for a second, but that's kind of what that is, because like Pete Carroll wants to run the football, right? And to an extent, I think Chip Kelly wants to run the football too. And we'll see if Chip Kelly NFL version 2.0, maybe 3.0 at this point, if he has adapted a little bit, has changed, has not, decided to run that totally up tempo. Look, there's good players kind of around him. They've got Ashton Genty, they've got Jacoby Myers, they've got Brock Bowers in there. I guess the rest of the receiving core leaves a little bit to be desired, so I'm not totally in love with it. And as a quarterback, you're only as good as the people that catch the passes you throw. So, yeah, again, I think he's adequately placed here at 25. I don't have an issue with that. I think he might finish kind of, again, where I think that it's going to get crowded at QB 15 for me. But I think that he and Sam Darnold probably have comparable years, which is interesting given that Sam has taken over Geno's job. So if I think that he, finishes kind of in that middle of the pack, there's value there. I think that he finishes higher than where he's being drafted. So I like the value. I think it'll be interesting to see what this offense looks like, given Chip Kelly's influence. That if I can get him as the 25th quarterback off the board, I'd be thrilled.
Right. Yeah, I'm right there with you. I do think that there's some tremendous value for Geno Smith where he's coming off the board right now, right at QB 25 overall. Yeah, this is a guy that I really, really wouldn't mind having Geno as my third quarterback in a super flex, right? Like really would feel comfortable about that one. And I do think that we'll see him outperform this this ADP, right? Like even with even in a down years as Geno has kind of resurrected his career a little bit, like this is a guy that I think will finish inside the top 20 when it comes to quarterbacks on this one. And I think realistically, this is a guy that we could probably see be close to 4,000 yards through the air, probably in that 20 to 25 touchdown range. So I do think that there's some good value built in and baked into this ADP. And I think that we'll see Geno Smith outperform it yet again, even in a new change of scenery on this one. And I am excited to see the what this offense is going to look like with the Pete Carroll and Chip Kelly, how that's going to roll. Any other thoughts on Geno Smith? All right, real quick before we get into the next one, let's go ahead and we had a couple of comments and chat coming in here. Let's go ahead and hit that up here real quickly. Binkin was saying Sam Darnold is okay in the right system. He has the inability to maneuver around the pocket and caps his potential a little bit, which I think is kind of where we were leaning there as well. So saying that the percentage of Sam Darnold fantasy teams that win their league, it feels really low. Yeah. I think
right.
I
mean, if you're hanging your hat on Sam Darnold, sure. But like as a second or a third quarterback option, yeah, he's fine.
Fair enough. Binkin did have a question saying, do you see Marvin Harrison Jr. being a wide receiver 1 this year? Do you see a more pronounced performance for Marvin Harrison Jr. in year 2?
So I see his role expanding in that Cardinals offense, right? I think just as he gets more comfortable with the NFL game, right? I also think that there's not a ton of at least on paper, other talent really around him. I mean, look at their depth chart right now, and it's Marvin Harrison Jr., it's Michael Wilson, and Greg Dortch. Zay Jones is on this roster, and
do not forget about Mr. Trey McBride.
Yeah, okay, yeah, I didn't get to the tight end position, but again, so like that, that's really easy if you can just lock down, roll a safety over top of the tight end and roll a safety over top of Marvin Harrison Jr. Like that makes it a little bit difficult, right? For Kyler Murray to figure out what's going on there. So Do I think he finishes in wide receiver 1? I think there's a path for it. But I think there are so many talented wide receivers that it's going to be difficult for him to finish in the top 12.
Yeah, I would agree with you, right? Like this is one of those that when you look at Marvin Harrison Jr., where he's coming off the board right now, he's coming off the board at wide receiver 17 in a lot of best ball formats. Kind of with a round position in round 3. So I feel like that one's a little bit rich for me, right? And this is kind of where I put that in perspective there as well, right? Like the guys currently going off the board around Marvin Harrison Jr. Terry McLaurin is going 1 pick ahead of him, and by the way, that's Terry McLaurin coming off of wide receiver number 5 overall last season in a lot of formats there. So that's a little
go beyond that. Mike Evans is coming off the board, right. 2 picks later,
right
after Marvin Harrison Jr. and Mike Evans finished wide receiver 11 last year.
And depending upon which format, he was also all the way as high as number 7. So like there's a lot of, but regardless, right? Like that's a wide receiver 1 finish there. And Mike Evans is Mr. 1,000 yards and double-digit touchdowns. Like,
you know what you're getting.
Exactly, right? Rashee Rice, who when he was healthy and going through, he was the wide receiver number 1 overall in football when he got injured last year, and he's going a couple of picks after him as well. And he's got a similar type of situation, right? And reports coming out of camp is that he looks extremely healthy again, right? DJ Moore, another guy that's coming off the board after him. And DJ Moore is a guy that we've seen get into that kind of range previously on that with a couple seasons ago. And this is one that with a new offense and especially a great offensive mind like we think Ben Johnson is, and the maturation of Caleb Williams, right? Like those are some guys kind of right behind that I would have more confidence in taking over Marvin Harrison Jr. at this point. Any other thoughts on that part?
No, I think there's a path. I think it's a difficult one.
Right. And so Ben can also ask that. So Marvin Harrison Jr. ADP rises or falls? Based off of what we just went through there, Binkin, in my book, he would be falling on my ADP. Like I said, there's a handful of guys directly after him that I would rather draft than go Marvin Harrison Jr. Right. So, I guess Alex, let's kind of put this to the test here a little bit and tell me when to stop. Tell me a guy that when we get there that you go, nope, I'm smashing Marvin Harrison Jr. over this guy in the rankings, right? So Marvin Harrison Jr., Devontae Adams, Mike Evans, Rashee Rice, DJ Moore, Xavier Worthy.
So I consider it here. This is a tough spot for me here because Xavier Worthy's not the number 1 option there, but man, can he pop?
Right. I'd like Xavier Worthy in best ball, but in a redraft format, give me Marvin Harrison Jr. all day. Yeah. Right. So that's a guy that I would take Marvin Harrison Jr. over, right? Devonta Smith or Marvin Harrison Jr.
I think I'd take Marvin Harrison Jr. just because he's the one, right? Devonta Smith is not the one. He's the 2 or the 1B.
Right. And I think I'm on the same page there, right? Like Marvin Harrison Jr. Hopefully we'll see him finish at wide receiver 2, in a wide receiver 2 range at worst. And I think that's probably where we see him finish in that 15 to 20 range this year. Yeah. Whereas I think Devonta Smith, when it's all said and done, we'll probably see him again back end wide receiver 2, right? In that wide receiver 20 to 26 kind of range.
Yeah.
The one note, and this was kind of the other guy that I would take over Marvin Harrison Jr. is Courtland Sutton. I would take Courtland Sutton over Marvin Harrison Jr. We see the connection in there, right? And Cortland Sutton certainly is a red zone target for the Broncos when they get down in there, and the chemistry is very real between him and Bo Nix.
Yeah, I would agree with that, and I think that's probably the last guy that you're looking at in terms of, and so that's as it sits right here on this ADP that we're looking at. That's wide receiver 24, right. So there's the back end of wide receiver 2. So
if Aaron Rodgers went to Pittsburgh, I would add DK Metcalf into that list, right? Just from the fact that Aaron Rodgers hyper targets a singular wide receiver, and quite frankly, there's not much
until he doesn't, right?
Fair enough.
Like, he hyper targets a receiver until you've wronged him in some way that he takes great offense to, and then you don't exist, right? We've seen that.
All right. And then Binkin having this one is there as well. As one more thing, giving Marvin Harrison Jr. ADP, taking him in a round 2 lets a few players fall to you in the 3rd. I'm just taking a stand on him in the 2nd for me. I mean, I get it, right? Like, go get your guy if you're if you're confident about him, and that's where you want to plant your flag. Like, that's the hill, man. Go get it.
Go get your guy,
right? Like, appreciate it. And then Binkin saying that he appreciates us and taking all the time to answer the questions. All right. Let's go ahead and hit up jump back into our list here. We got a few more quarterbacks to get through tonight. And we just got done talking about Geno Smith. So we're on to Bryce Young. And Bryce Young this last season had an interesting kind of deal, right? In that second season, was the starter. They got benched for Andy Dalton, then got brought back, and had a season where he had 234 completions on 384 attempts for 2,403 yards, 15 touchdowns, 9 interceptions, put another roughly 250 yards on the ground and 6 touchdowns. Thoughts on Bryce Young?
Again, this is like, I don't mind him as a 3rd quarterback option in a best ball, right? Like, as we kind of started this show off, I don't hate his schedule to start, right? Like, his schedule to start is fine. His schedule overall is fine. His playoff schedule is a little bit difficult. So I think as a 3rd quarterback option in a Superflex league, you're fine. As long as he's your 3rd quarterback that you take it. I don't hang your hat on Bryce Young. I just don't see it this year. And honestly, I'm not sure that I see it unless they make some huge changes. Yes, the addition of Ted McMillan is great. Adam Thielen's been a steady presence there for them over the last couple of years, and Xavier Legette, I think, is intriguing, but you got to block for the kid. You got to get his head right. And he did turn it around last year, but he, in my opinion, is no better than a 3rd quarterback in a Superflex best ball streaming situation. I'm not starting Bryce Young week in, week out and hoping for the best.
Right. Yeah. I'm not looking for that either. I've especially in a redraft single quarterback deal, like, right, this is a streaming spot start type of player here. Superflex, absolutely, like, love the potential for a third QB on the Superflex side of things, right? And a lot of that has to comes down to where he was and how he finished the season, right? Like, that's one of the things that constantly tell a lot of folks that, in the season, things like that, even if you're out of the playoffs, even if you're eliminated, even if you didn't make the playoffs, keep watching the games and keep following some of these things, because you can find some nuggets as they start proceeding into the next season, right? Bryce Young was a guy that over his last 3 starts, QB2 on the week, QB19, QB1, right? But during that time, it had almost a 65% completion percentage, 600 yards through the air, 7 touchdowns and 0 interceptions. Like, that is a really good stretch and a really good pace. And I think that this is one of those that if he can build off of that, and he's got another head coach that has been pretty good at developing some quarterbacks and bringing them around. I do think that he's got some good things on his side there and can build on that to continue to progress there. So I do think that there is some value here on Bryce Young, and really like that as a third QB in my Superflex. Any other thoughts on this one? All right, next guy up, we've got Matthew Stafford, and Matthew Stafford is kind of riding into to yet another season. 16 years veteran, as you mentioned earlier in the show. Last season, 340 completions, 515 yards, 3,762 yards, 20 touchdowns, 8 interceptions, and managed to put together 41 rushing yards. Any thoughts on Matthew Stafford?
41 whole rushing yards. I look. What you see is what you get, right? Like, he's going at 23. I figure that's probably about where he's going to finish, just because he does not offer any rushing upside. He does have the receivers in Puka and Devontae Adams, and we started the show off talking about that. But I think Matt Stafford is right where he is. I think he's a solid second quarterback option. But he's on the lower end of the solid second quarterback options.
Yeah, like this is one of those that and you did mention that earlier, that the days of I think the days of gunslinger Matt Stafford are a little bit in the past here, right? This is one of those that I don't know that we're going to see him, really pushing the envelope and exceeding that 4,500 passing yards and up there in the 30 to 40 touchdown range. And that's where it's going to take for Matthew Stafford to ultimately play that out and get himself into really good quarterback fantasy relevance in a single QB league, right? Now, again, this is one of those that there is some potential for, QB spot starts, not necessarily looking to entrust that to it, just from the standpoint that there is some of that those spot starts a little bit tougher to kind of call that one. And it's also one of those that, there's some other options that I would rather go with, but in a super flex, I don't necessarily mind Matthew Stafford as my third, maybe even my second QB, just from the standpoint that I will get a pretty consistent showing week in, week out. But realistically, I think you've got to look at some other options if you're going to be competitive for the league with Matthew Stafford in there at playing even as a QB2 on the Superflex. Any other thoughts on this one?
No, sir.
All right, awesome. All right, let's go ahead and hit up the next QB, and we've got Michael Penix. And Michael Penix coming off of the rookie campaign, where certainly kind of had the interesting draft scenario play out there, and in which a lot of people were wondering what they were doing, and turns out Atlanta may have known what they were doing on that one. Where drafting Penix to have him come in and finish the season off. On a shortened year, he did have 61 completions, 105 attempts, 775 yards, 3 touchdowns, 3 interceptions, and managed to have 11 rushing yards with 1 touchdown. Thoughts on Michael Penix?
Yeah, finished the year, right? He appeared in 5 games, but really the bulk of it came in 3 starts there at the end of the year. Against the Giants, against Washington, and against Carolina. So a bit skewed, right? Because Washington was really the only playoff team that he was against. Really the only team that kind of had their stuff together that late in the season. So low risk for Atlanta to start him there. I think he is again adequately rated right now in this 23-24 range. I think he is kind of similar to Matt Stafford in that I feel like He's going to finish in the back half of QB2. I don't know that I see a way for him to get a higher. There is some rushing upside, but I just don't know if that's what, like, you've got Bijan Robinson, like, turn around and hand the football to him. Let him do that dirty work for you. Who gets stronger as he does that dirty work, right? Like, it benefits your team to do that. So I think that that's going to be tough for him to even like poach touchdowns when they get into short yardage, right? Like that's not even, I think all that stuff goes to Bijan or to Tyler Algier. So back half of QB2 range I'm comfortable with where he's at there. So I think this is where he's at is where he should be. And I'm okay with him being my second quarterback, really my third quarterback option I'm more comfortable with that in like a best ball, just a streaming situation or a spot start.
Yeah, this is a guy that I don't know that we're gonna. I feel like you're kind of drafting him almost ceiling type of play here, right? Like this is a guy that I don't think is going to that's going to really outperform this ADP on this one. In fact, I could see him finishing lower than that, right? One of those that when we saw him make those starts, right? As you mentioned, some ho-hum performances there. You did manage to put up some decent yardage, but the touchdowns, the interceptions, kind of matching that. Really was Carolina was the one good performance on that one. The other ones were a QB3 type of range on that, which again, right, there's some learning curve. There's some of some of those things which I get. But there's other guys that we've already talked about tonight that I think I would rather have as my QB2 than I would have Michael Penix. Geno Smith is a guy that immediately stands out as a guy that I would rather have on my roster over Michael Penix. Bryce Young is another guy that I actually would lean towards the Bryce Young pick over Michael Penix at this point, and just kind of seeing how that progresses. But it's a guy that, if you're looking at this and you're able to put him on your roster as your third QB in a Superflex, I really like that one. But if I'm drafting him as my QB2 in a Superflex, I would rather look at different options there for sure. So any other thoughts on Michael Penix?
Nah.
All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and hit up the Tua Tagovailoa. And Tua Tagovailoa is coming off of a season where again he was a little bit banged up last season. 291 completions, 399 attempts on 2,867 yards, 19 touchdowns, 7 interceptions, and managed to put up 49 rushing yards. Thoughts on Tua?
I wanted Tua to have such a good year last year. And look, he now has, like, you have to think about his long-term health here. And I know that, like, that was a scary situation to see him get hit like that last year. He does have plenty of talent around him. That's for sure, right? Even though there's a disgruntled or a seemingly disgruntled Tyreek Hill there, but he's got Devon Achane, who can be an effective receiver. I guess there's talk of Jonnu Smith getting dealt, but as we sit here, he's still on the Dolphins roster. So that would be a bit of a blow there. You've got Jalen Waddle. Again, there's no shortage of speed on this Miami roster. For Tua, the question is, are you going to get a full season of Tua? And if you get a full season of Tua, really, really appreciate it. This schedule is rather enticing. I mean, if you look at what they've got, they're not playing a playoff team until week 9. They get Baltimore. Excuse me, they do have Buffalo week 3. Pardon me. But it's a very, very favorable start to the season for Tua. So you'd have to think that if he stays healthy, he would be able to far exceed this QB21 ranking here. So what risk are you willing to take, right? I think if you take Tua, you have to be willing to guard against his health aversion, right? That's the term we've coined on this podcast. Is he's not an injury risk, he's just health averse sometimes. It is a very true reality. So I think your plan here is if you go quarterback early, right, in a super flex, which you should, right? If you go quarterback early or you're in like a best ball, and then Tua is a solid second choice, right? You can kind of wait on taking that second quarterback. So you go quarterback early. You take, a Josh Allen, Lamar Jackson, Jaden Daniels, Joe Burrow. You take those guys. Then you can grab a different, maybe two different positions, two different players before you have to come back in the fourth and grab a Tua. But you're going to need to have high-end reliability if you have Tua on your roster. Like I don't see any way to get around it. You're not going to be able to overcome his absence or his the potential for his absence by not having high-end quarterback play.
Yeah, that's very true. And this is one of those that you're right. The schedule on this thing, like he's got one of the best strengths of schedule when it comes to a quarterback deal. So highly intriguing, highly enticing on this one. Tyreek Hill is, as far as what I've seen, still isn't catching balls at this point after that wrist injury and going through the offseason there. Jonnu Smith, there is lots of talks about him potentially being dealt to Pittsburgh, and Pittsburgh being, according to reports, aggressive and trying to acquire him. So it could be very interesting how that room shakes out there. The Miami offensive line, could be problematic. Could be an issue for that as well. So this is a guy that it's a high risk, high reward type of play, right? Tua is a quarterback that can give you a top 10 QB finish on the season. He's also a guy that, if he's not able to maintain his health for the entire season, this is going to be an issue and turn into an issue quickly for your fantasy roster. So this is a high risk, high reward play in my book. But it is a bit of a hero call. If you do go this route, like you can potentially put together a pretty good deal when it comes to that super flex. Even if you're going in a single QB and you're going with that real super late QB type of strategy, this could be a very good move and a very good option there. But you're going to have other plans in place to be able to pivot if required. But I say all of that to say that I'm not adverse to putting Tua on my roster this year. Any other thoughts on Tua?
No, and I'm not either, and I should be because I got burned pretty hard last year with him. But yeah, second quarterback for sure.
All righty. Let's go ahead and move on over to JJ McCarthy, the second year quarterback. JJ McCarthy ended up not playing his rookie season with a knee injury, but does appear to be back and healthy and QB1 in Minnesota. Thoughts on JJ McCarthy?
This is so intriguing. I wish I had last year, right? To see what he is, because he plays in a Kevin O'Connell offense, right? Which we've established now is great for quarterbacks. Kirk Cousins, Sam Darnold, JJ feels like that's his skill set, right? Like it is kind of similar to what those two guys are. He's got Justin Jefferson, who is apparently quarterback proof at this point. Or is close to it. This will be the determiner. So I like a lot about what it is. I don't know what JJ McCarthy looks like on an NFL field, right? Like we don't know what that looks like. So this is again a flyer. I think this is a guy that you take, and if you have again consistent, solid, high-end QB1, high-end QB1, right? Like consistently in that QB 6 and above ranking, then JJ McCarthy is absolutely worth taking as your second quarterback, because he's going to be the guy. We've seen that Minnesota can protect their quarterbacks. So another injury it won't be for a lack of blocking. So I'm very intrigued by JJ McCarthy this year. He's a guy that, like, you get down to it, like, he's a guy that I'm grabbing. In some of these mock drafts that we've done, he's my second quarterback that I'm taking in a single QB league, right? Like, it's just, I think it's a good second quarterback option. But I think in order to balance that, you have to have consistent QB1 in a Superflex league for sure. The same as Tua. Like, you're going to have consistent high-end QB1 play to balance out what should be a roller coaster with JJ.
Fair enough. Where JJ McCarthy's coming off the board, Superflex wise, I'm out on that one, right? Like, this is a guy that I don't want to rely on my second QB to be a guy that we haven't seen touch the field, right? Like, sure, he came into a draft class, was a highly drafted draft class. They've done some things there, but again, this is one of those that I want to see it a little bit more, so that I'm going to rely on my second QB in a Superflex to rock and roll, especially when there's other options below that I'd rather take that risk on, right? Like, I'd rather take the swing on Tua than JJ at this point, right? JJ McCarthy is a guy that, when it's all said and done, I think we see him potentially get to about 3,500 yards through the air. I think we're going to see him probably in that 23 touchdowns and 16, 17 interception range. Like, one of those that I do think that he's potentially being a little overdrafted for where I think the finish is going to be and what the projections are going to line up for. Do I think he has a pretty good showing? Yes, I do, but I think that there's other guys that I'd rather take in this place and would rather spend a pick on in this range, and a few guys that we've already talked about in there as well. So that's kind of where I'm at with JJ McCarthy. Any other thoughts? Alrighty, let's go ahead and head on over to Trevor Lawrence. And Trevor Lawrence coming into another season here, is maybe this will be the fantasy breakout that we've been waiting on. Last season, Trevor Lawrence was 172 completions on 284 attempts, 2,045 yards, 11 touchdowns, 7 sacks, and put together 119 yards on the ground and 3 touchdowns. Thoughts on Trevor Lawrence?
And he did that, and he missed 7 games last year. So
right,
that's tough. It's a tough year. Stat that out. That's a lot more interceptions and not so many more touchdowns. I don't know, man. I think everybody wants Trevor Lawrence to be great. I think the way that you kind of look at JJ McCarthy is the way that I'm looking at Trevor Lawrence this year. I don't think that it's there, and something's got to change there in Jacksonville. And I just don't know that it's going to happen. It's a winnable division. That's what's crazy about it, right? Like, Houston seems to be like they're the front runners there, but like the rest of it, there's a lot of distraction with Travis Hunter, Travis Etienne. We got to figure out what's going on there with the running back position. Brian Thomas Jr. should be solid again, but man, I don't want to deal with it. So, like, to me, Trevor Lawrence, I'm out on Trevor Lawrence this year. I'm not looking for him in any situation. But I think as like your third option at quarterback, streaming option, I'm much more intrigued by a JJ McCarthy than I am a Trevor Lawrence. I'm much more intrigued that way. Just
Well,
to kind of let you know.
fair enough. One of the things that intrigues me about Trevor Lawrence is the new head coach that they brought in, right? Liam Cohen is the new guy in Jacksonville, and this is a guy that we just saw Baker have his career best season last year under the that offensive strategy and how that looks and works. And so I do think that there is brighter days ahead for Trevor Lawrence on this one. Yeah, we've seen Trevor Lawrence put up some good performances in the past, and I think that we can see him kind of get back to that, to the point where, it wouldn't surprise me if we see Trevor Lawrence around the north of the 4,000 passing yards on this one. See him in probably close to the in that kind of, I would say probably in that 26, 27 touchdown range, and I think we'll probably see him also put up a few yards with the old legs there, getting to that 300 to 400 yards and 4 to 5 touchdowns on the ground as well. So I do think that there's a lot of upside for Trevor Lawrence here. And I do think that this is one that there's value for this one, because I do think that coming off the board at QB 19, wouldn't surprise me to see him finish up there in the north of our finish ahead inside of QB 15 range. So I do think that there's some built-in value on this pick, and I do like where he's coming off the board. Any other thoughts here on Trevor Lawrence?
No, sir.
All right, awesome. Let's go ahead and hit up CJ Stroud, and CJ Stroud coming into the third year after a little bit of a sophomore slump in season 2. Last year, he was 336 completions on 532 yards, 3,727 yards through the air, 20 touchdowns, 12 interceptions. Did manage to put up another 233 yards on the ground. Thoughts on CJ Stroud?
It was a difficult year last year. That was a really difficult year for him. High expectations, right, after his rookie campaign, and it wasn't horrible, right? He just wasn't meeting the expectations that I think certainly I had for him. There's talent around him there in Houston. They've got a good team. They've got a good defense, which means that he'll get the ball back. I'm confident, I guess, maybe too confident that he finishes in, closer to the back end of QB1 than he does the back end of QB2, right? So I think he's in that 12 to 16 range, which is a touch above where he's going. And I do think there's a path for him to get into QB1 range too. Like it could very easily happen. I could see him having a better year than Caleb Williams, right? Like that's possible. I could see him having a better year than Justin Herbert or Drake May, who we're about to talk about. So,
right.
I like him. I think that it's a good team that he's on. So I like him as a second quarterback for sure.
Right. And this is an interesting thing, right? Like kind of listening to the fantasy community and what that kind of looked like last year. You would have thought that he completely fell off a cliff when looking at it from a perspective. Like he went from QB 11 in season 1 to QB 18 in season 2, right? So about seven spots of difference, which pretty good movement down there, right? Went from a back end QB1 to a mid QB2. And there was about 400 yards of difference through the air, 3 touchdowns, and then 3 touchdowns on the ground, right? Like, so 6 total touchdowns and about 400 yards difference there, which certainly can add up and certainly, kind of reflect that way. But I do think we see a bounce back for CJ Stroud this season as well. This is a deal where I think we're going to see him ultimately return to form here. And I think we probably see a high, an upper end QB2 finish for him, more so than a mid QB2 range. And this is one of those that I think that there's some pretty good value in drafting CJ Stroud, where he's coming off the board at QB 18, because I think you're drafting him at his floor. I don't know that you're going to see him finish below that range. So at worst case scenario, you're you're still getting a break-even type of deal from a draft capital standpoint, and where you would have to have him to go through and draft that. But I do think that he ultimately finishes ahead of that, and can return into that probably QB 12, 13, 14 type of range. Like, I think that's probably where we'll see him finish. So I do like the value that's being presented there with that draft pick. Any other thoughts with CJ Stroud?
No, sir.
All righty. Last guy we're going to hit up tonight and talk about is Drake May. And Drake May coming into the sophomore season. And last year he put up 225 completions on 338 attempts, 2,276 yards, 15 touchdowns, 10 interceptions, had 421 yards on the ground and 2 touchdowns on the ground. Thoughts on Drake May?
So, new head coach in town, right? New philosophy, new identity, right? Mike Vrabel, we've seen what his offenses kind of look like. Decent schedule to start. It's not a bad schedule overall, really. Us outside of their division. So, do we think that they're going to be a run-first team? I tend to think so. I think that that's going to be what we see from New England, even though Mike McDaniel is still the offensive coordinator, right? Like that guy never leaves New England. So how creative can they get? I'm torn here. I think that he's again going to be just like a solid QB2, but I think he's back half of QB2. I don't think he finishes QB17. I think he probably finishes in the 20s. That's where I'm at with Drake May.
So, yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm seeing that one there as well. Like, this is one of those that, right, QB17, I don't know that I'm necessarily feeling like we're going to see much more than that, right? From a passing perspective, I don't know that we're going to get more than about 3,500 yards to this thing. I don't know that we've seen more than about 22 touchdowns on this one. And really probably, we're still probably looking about 15 interceptions or so. The thing that I think would make the difference for him to push him up there is the fact that he does have some rushing upside and some rushing ability. Could we see him get to that like 600 yards on the ground and put up a handful of touchdowns? We certainly could. And if that's the case, like, that's where he's going to separate, and that's where he's going to move the needle and bring that thing home. So from there, it's a perspective that I think that we'll probably see him closer to that QB 20 range when the season's all said and done, then see him move the needle upwards on this one. But I think that he's probably coming off the board pretty appropriately, because I do think that we probably see a finish in that in kind of that 17 to 23 range. Like, that's where I think he's going to go. So I feel like I'm probably drafting him a little bit more at the ceiling than I am at the floor. And so it's tough to say that there's some value here, but there's a lot of intrigue and a lot of potential upside. And that is, that could be very interesting here. So I think I may take the shot on Drake May in a few of these leagues just to kind of see how that one shakes up and to potentially kind of try that piece out there. But I'm not necessarily looking to hang my hat on a Drake May breakout, if that makes sense. Any other thoughts on Drake May?
No. This is a difficult spot. I think it's a difficult spot.
Okay. Awesome. All righty. Well, that's going to take us to the end of the players on the list tonight. We're going to be rocking and rolling through QB 1 through 16 next week as far as ADP goes, to kind of round out the topic there, and then we'll start moving into some of the other positions and seeing how that comes out there. So it'll be fun to see how we start thinking of the QBs in that 1 to 16 range and what that looks like there. Real quick before we start signing out, let's go ahead and hit up one of these other questions that Binkin had. If he's asking if Keenan Allen goes to Arizona, does that change your outlook on Marvin Harrison Jr.? Sorry, this is my last question about Marvin Harrison Jr. LOL.
I don't. I mean, it certainly doesn't help Marvin Harrison Jr., right? That's another mouth to feed there for Kyler. And it's probably a better option than what is lining up opposite Marvin Harrison Jr. right now. So it probably takes away not a significant number of targets, right? Because those targets would go to those other guys anyway. But I don't think that's I don't think it has a significant impact one way or another on Marvin Harrison Jr.
Yeah, I would agree with that. I do think that there's some there's some thought into that if you line up a better receiver in there, it makes the defense focus on other areas of that, and you can't just overload or force the make the team to force the ball into a guy, right? It allows the team to spread it out and with more weapons there, right? But this isn't the Keenan Allen that from even a few years ago, right? Like this is a more elder statesman, so to speak, and they get a little bit longer in the tooth there. And if what we saw out of Chicago is what we see down in Arizona, I don't know that necessarily changes the tune or moves the needle on that one. So, and the fact is that I don't know that it's going to change who the most targeted person on the team is, right? Like this is one of those that do you, if we're sitting here and in June, if you had to pick between who the more targeted player on Arizona is for the 2025 season, who would you put as the most targeted guy for the Arizona Cardinals in 2025? Is it Marvin Harrison Jr.? Is it somebody else?
I think it's still Marvin Harrison Jr. I think he's clear favorite, but I think like as this roster sits right now, like I wouldn't be surprised if Trey McBride was the second most targeted person on that team.
See, and I'd flip that and I'd say that Trey McBride is going to be the most targeted guy again in Arizona, right? Like I think Marvin Harrison Jr. is the second option in that offense, right? Like the chemistry is clearly there between Kyler and Trey McBride, right? To the point where Trey McBride had 147 targets this last year. Marvin Harrison Jr. was around 116. Certainly that picked up towards the end of it, but this is a deal where I don't know that we're going to see them back off of Trey McBride, and I do think we're going to see a much bigger breakout from Trey McBride this coming year, because I think we're going to see some positive touchdown regression in this one, right? So wouldn't surprise me to see Trey McBride in the 5-6 touchdown range with, again, 1,200 yards, right? Like, and somewhere in the 140 plus targets. So like I get it that a lot of folks are wanting the Marvin Harrison Jr. Breakout to happen, especially as dominant as he was in college and the draft capital and everything else. But I just don't know that we're going to see that to a point where I'm still comfortable trying to draft him ahead of where he's currently going in ADP. In fact, there's other guys that we discussed earlier that I'd still take around him and take over him that are even going behind him. And from there, again, right, this is one of those that I don't know that we're going to necessarily see that where, now I guess we'll pose the question here a little bit different way. Pass catchers in Arizona this coming year, do you think, who do you think the most fantasy points and half point PPR scoring for the for pass catchers in Arizona, who do you think will lead the way?
I mean, it's easy to see how Trey McBride would, because I think Trey McBride gets more touchdowns, right? I think, and obviously he's targeted, was targeted more last year. I guess, you've talked me into it. I would lean Trey McBride here.
Right, like Trey McBride was off to a historic targets and touchdowns type of thing, right? And so I do think I see that pick up, and so I'm of the opinion that I think that it still may come down to Trey McBride may actually put up more points than Marvin Harrison Jr., right? A little bit of a hot take maybe here in early June, but as I'm kind of seeing things at this time, that's kind of where I would lean. Alrighty. And any other thoughts on this one?
No.
Alrighty. Well, that's going to take us down here to the end of it. Any final thoughts out there for the viewers and listeners?
No, take care. I think Kevin's back with us next week, so we'll have all three amigos running through the next batch of quarterbacks. Yep,
I think so as well. And so that's going to do it for us tonight. Do appreciate everybody tuning in, chiming in, interacting in with the chats and the questions there. We'll be back next week, same time, Tuesday, 11 p.m. Eastern, and start rocking and rolling through that. You know where to find us on all the socials: Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok, at Good Old Boys FF. Be sure to head over to YouTube, click that subscribe button, ring the bell. I've hit the like button, all that good stuff. But that's going to do it for us tonight. He's Alex. I'm Derek. Have a good one. Be safe. Toodaloo.